Good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy Rayfield. We're going to get started here. We're going to talk about what we affectionately call what you need to know about business ownership. We call it our Business Ownership Exploration Webinar, and we do this webinar on a national basis about once a quarter. So it's really kind of a franchising 101 type of seminar, and it gives us a chance to get the word out about franchising in general to people. So we're not going to be focusing specifically on any franchises in here, but we're going to be talking about franchising as a whole. So let's go ahead and get started. I just want to talk a little bit about me. Whoops, let me go back a slide here. My name is Cindy Rayfield. I am a senior franchise consultant with FranNet. There's about 100 people like me all across the United States. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Just so you know, I am a FranNet consultant in the state of Colorado. I work with clients in Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. I am a Colorado native, graduate of the great University of Denver, not far from where I live right now. I have 10 years experience in the franchise industry as a franchise consultant, 20 years as a whole in small business, and I'm also a franchisee. I actually own a children's hair care concept. So I'm a franchisee, and I'm actually building out my second location. So I am in a situation that a lot of my clients go through, so I'm able to really help them relate to what they can expect as they go through this journey. I'm also a proud Broncos fan and a proud Colorado Rockies fan and a proud Colorado Avalanche fan as well. So there's a lot of great sports in Colorado, and I just like to mention that. So not everybody agrees with me, but being a Colorado native, I do have my loyalties for sure. So let's talk about what we're going to discuss here for the next 60 minutes. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. And again, you can put your questions in the chat box, and I'll be able to answer them at the end. First of all, we're going to talk about why business ownership, why people go into business ownership to begin with, options for how people get into business, whether that's a franchise or in other ways as well, risks and reward for business ownership, myths and realities of franchising, how to identify the best business options for you, and how to build your own personal business model. This is pretty important, especially if you're going to be opening a business. You need to understand what your business is going to look like. I just did a seminar today for vets at Buckley Air Force Base here in Colorado, so this is very similar to what I discussed this morning. First of all, let me introduce who FranNet is, because some of you may not know. Some of you may already be working with a FranNet consultant, but for those of you who are not, who may be joining for the first time, let me just tell you who we are. FranNet is a 30-plus-year-old international franchise consulting firm. So we've been around a while. We've been around the block in terms of franchising. We've got, as I mentioned at the beginning, over 100 locally based consultants like me across North America and Europe. We have some national partnerships with some really strong national organizations. One of them is called SCORE. That used to stand for, that used to be an acronym for Senior Corps of Retired Executives. However, they've kind of changed their focus in recent years, and they actually just provide really good hands-on business experience from people who've been there. It's kind of the been there, done that crowd. Also, we're partners with America's Small Business Development Centers. Very similar in some respects to what SCORE does, but there's actually counselors who teach in specific areas such as marketing, legal, accounting, things of that nature. So those are free resources, and we do encourage people to seek those out because you get some really great information if you're really serious about looking at franchise ownership or business ownership in general. What we do at FranNet is we match people who want to be in business with a franchise that meets their needs. We're basically franchise matchmakers, and that's really fun because I get a chance to really help people get into a business based on their goals, their lifestyle, their background, how much money they have to spend, all of those things. So it's really fun for me to be able to match them up. Our services at FranNet as consultants are free. They're always free to you, the client. I'm going to explain how that works here on the next slide. What we do at FranNet is we match prospects with franchisors. So we're in the education business. We educate our prospects on opportunities in business ownership, specifically franchise ownership. We offer prospects choices so they can make informed decisions. And what we really do is we're pre-screeners. We pre-screen all franchisors to meet our applicant standards. So all the franchises that I represent, there's about 200 of them, a little bit over 200. we've already done the pre-screening to add them to our inventory. So we've done that legwork, but we help our clients walk through the process to make sure that these franchisors fit their needs. So we're matching applicants to our franchisor standards as well. That's where the matchmaking comes in. We don't sell franchises. We represent them, and we can tell you about a certain franchise concept and then make the introduction to the franchisors so that you can really dig in and learn about it. And then up here in the little orange dot in the upper left-hand corner where it says no cost, we truly do this at no cost because we act very similar to, or we get paid very similarly to the way a recruiter gets paid. So we're kind of like recruiters for franchisors. So they pay us a referral fee when a client that we present to them actually goes through and buys a franchise. So we only get paid if our clients actually end up investing in a franchise. Something that makes us very different from some of our competitors, we have something called a Client Bill of Rights. We truly believe this. This Bill of Rights is basically 10 rights that we feel like our clients have as they're looking through franchises. And I don't have time to go through each and every one of these, but know that at the beginning of your process, when you're working with a FriendNet consultant, they're going to be able to help you understand what your rights are as a client of ours. And that's really important for you to know. You do have rights as a client, and we respect those rights as you go through and do your research. At the end of the day, it doesn't mean that you have to buy a franchise. It doesn't mean you have to invest in a franchise, but we're here to help you along the way. So let's talk a little bit about why people go into business ownership. What I'd like really for people to ask themselves is imagine that you're the owner of a successful business. Think about how your life is going to be better, how your life is going to be different. Really, for a lot of people, when they come to us at FriendNet, they're really trying to move away from some sort of career pain, or they feel like they're lacking. They haven't been achieving their career goals. So the next slide shows why. These are some of the reasons that people give us as to why they're looking at business ownership. It's going to be different for everyone, but it really goes back to that why, because you have to really dig in and know what you want when you're looking at business ownership as an option, because it's not all rainbows and unicorns. Just like there is no perfect job, there's no perfect path to business ownership. So you really have to dig in and know why you want to do this. For a lot of people, it's about having that control. Maybe they've been traveling a lot and they're not seeing their families as much. I have worked with clients who have traveled 5 days out of the week and they only come home on the weekends. They get tired of that. You can only do that for so long. You miss things like plays and track meets and baseball games and graduations and things of that nature. So it's really important for a lot of these people as they move away from that career pain to move into something that they can control for themselves, that gives them flexibility and, oh, by the way, some financial security as well. Money is important in this as well. It doesn't mean that money is the most important thing. Sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's about that flexibility and the control that means even more to somebody than the money. For a lot of people, it's about no more layoffs. I've worked with clients who have seen multiple layoffs, and the higher they go in the the higher someone goes up the ladder in the corporate world, the more likely they are to get laid off, and the sooner it happens and the longer it takes to find the next job. So people get tired of that as well. People are looking for fulfillment, flexibility, independence, and on top of all of that, they're looking for some sort of success, maybe success that they haven't found in their career. Or if they have found some success in their career, they're really just ready to move on to the next thing, on to something else. And for a lot of those people, that means business ownership, or at least exploring it. So that's why people come to us. They're looking for these things, and they seek it out. But it's different for everyone. So ask yourself, what is it for you that's going to make you take a step to really do the research to find out if this is a good fit? Now, while people come to us and they say things like, I want to find a business, I want to do something different, most of the time, in fact, for me, I would say 75% of the time, most people choose to go back and find a job. They choose to work for someone else, almost all the time. Again, there's only maybe 1 in 4 who actually start out with me who end up buying a business. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of those include things like risk. people come to me that they don't want risk. And the reality is business is risk for reward. So sometimes a job looks like it's safer than a business. Or they'll say things like, I'll wait till the economy is better. And that could be, people say that in a good economy as well as a bad economy. They just do, because there's a perception about the economy and the way it actually is. Money's a big thing. There's the perception that a business costs a lot of money to start and run. Knowledge, people feel like they're lacking certain skills and they can't do it because they just don't know how to do it. Or that they don't know where to start in a lot of cases. They don't even know how to do this. And so they're looking for somebody to help guide them through it. And then again, the skills. Running a business may take some specific skills, or they think that it does. But let's talk about some of the realities. Let's talk first of all about the perception of risk. Now, I go through this because I think people need to understand what the reality is when they have a job. Just as I mentioned at the beginning, there is no perfect job, there is no perfect business. But here's what happens when you do have a job and you think it's secure. It's really not. The longer you have a job, in fact, the more likely you are to lose it. So in the short term, it feels really safe because you're getting a regular paycheck. But your performance doesn't guarantee your safety. And all you have to do is ask anybody who's been laid off from a job. Just because you're good at your job doesn't mean that you're safe. The longer you're there, the more money you take, the more benefits you have, the more vacation time you have. You are at risk the longer you're there. And what a lot of companies will do, and this happens to a lot of my clients, they get laid off because they can bring in somebody who's younger and they cost a lot less to employ. They can train them the way they want. So just because you're good at it and you've been there a long time, actually that puts you at risk even more. And then there's not always the way to meet that long-term financial goals that people have. When you're working every day, you've just got your head down, nose to the grindstone, and sometimes you're not thinking about what the next step might be in retirement. So very rarely do people come out of a job with their long-term financial goals met, or even close to that. Now there's a change in business ownership. There's this perception risk when it comes to business ownership. The perception is a business is super risky. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the real risk here. When you're working for someone else, you have one source of income. When that income goes away, that's like one client. That you're dead in the water. You have no income. When you own a business, you have multiple sources of income. You have multiple clients. You may offer multiple lines of revenue. So at first, owning that business may seem scary because you don't have a lot of clients up front. But the longer you're in business, the less likely that business is to go away. The more clients you gain, the more income that you can receive. You lose one client, you just replace it with another one. The safer it becomes over time, the more you can build your business. Nobody can take it away from you. It's yours, and you get to control it. So this kind of sums up these last two slides here. You've played by the rules, and for some of you who might be on this call, who might have been laid off recently or maybe facing a layoff pretty soon, this can ring true. You've played by the rules, but the rules are changing. Job security is kind of a past thinking methodology. Income security is the future, okay? That got cut off here on that slide. But income security is the future. It's not job security, okay? So business ownership can give you income security. Only job security, only your job can give you job security, and that can go away in a heartbeat. So let's talk about risk reduction. If you're concerned about how the economy can impact your business, a lot of people choose to lower their risk by looking for businesses with specific market characteristics. Let's talk about what that means. Many businesses thrive in all kinds of economic conditions. It doesn't matter if it's a good economy or a bad economy, however you perceive it. There's a lot of markets a lot of growing markets that are driven by demographics. Those things include senior care and services that serve the senior community, residential repairs, home modification, cleaning services. Those things don't go away, especially if you're talking about the senior industry. Seniors are the one segment of the population that are going to continue to grow over the next 20 years. So think about that. Seniors want to be able to stay in their homes. They need the services of somebody to come in and help them out in various capacities. Senior care is one of those things that's just not ever going to go away. It's going to grow, in fact. There's essential services. The franchise that I own is a hair care franchise. Hair care and beauty is an industry that is not going to go away. People are going to get their nails done. People are going to get their hair cut. It's just the way it is. In fact, if somebody's looking for a job, they're more likely to make sure that they have that upkeep. They're going to be going to job interviews. So hair grows from cradle to grave, and so people are always going to be getting haircuts. Fitness is another one of those. And I think people might find it really interesting that during the 2008 economic downturn, the fitness concepts did not go down. In fact, people kept their gym memberships. People kept their memberships with boutique fitness concepts because they got to look good. I mean, if they're not working, the very least they can do is go out and keep themselves in good shape. And they got to stay in shape because they got to be ready for the next job that's coming down the pipe. So fitness doesn't go away either. Automotive. During down economic times, people keep their cars. Those cars need upkeep and maintenance. Damage restoration. If you have ever had mold or fire damage or water damage, I've had mold damage in my house. That needs to be taken care of, and it needs to be taken care of when you need to have it done, so immediately. So there's not going to be a lot of shopping around. They're just going to go with somebody who can come in, get the job done fast. There's businesses that help other small businesses, and people rarely think about this. We call these business-to-business concepts, and there's a whole bunch of them out there, but we don't see them as general Joe consumer because we're not looking for them. We see the restaurants. We see the retail concepts, and we think that's all there is. The reality is there's businesses out there that need the services of other businesses. So things like business coaching, sales and employee training, digital marketing and advertising, staffing. Staffing's huge. Staffing is a long time, like a 40-year-old industry, and that can be permanent staffing, temporary staffing. Staffing never goes away, never goes away, in good economies, in bad economies. It just doesn't. It's always necessary. So things to consider when you're looking for certain businesses. Professionals still need training, and that's, again, that falls in that business-to-business category. People still want quality education for their kids. We didn't even talk about education, but education is a big one. People pay for private tutoring, for specialty tutoring like math or science or STEM programs. Homeowners still prefer to fix their homes rather than move, especially in an economy where you want to stay in your house. People need to fix it. It needs to stay manageable. It needs to stay under, it needs to be maintained. Businesses still need their offices maintained as well, so think commercial cleaning. And that's a big industry out there. Employers outsource and use personnel companies rather than committing to new hires, and that is true in good economies or bad. So there's many businesses out there that thrive in all sorts of economic conditions. So next topic we're going to discuss here is the path to business ownership. There's a few different business ownership options. The beginning of this, we're talking about the risk and the perception of risk. The next thing is, so what are people doing about it? A lot of people are deciding to just buy or start a small business. Let's talk about what that looks like. For a lot of people, this is what they think of. I'm going to start a small business from scratch. It's going to be mine. It's going to be neat. It's going to be no competition, really unique, very different, kind of sexy, kind of cool, and only I could do it. So there's great advantages to that. When you start your own business from scratch, you get total control. Nobody can tell you what to do. You get to make all the decisions. You've got room for your own personal creativity and passions. There's no predetermined rules. You get to set those. It has the largest upside because you get to keep all the money as well. And again, you get to build a business from maybe something that you're passionate about. Now, the disadvantages of starting a small business include things like you have to create your own system. You don't always know what you don't know, and you have to experiment. As somebody who has started business from scratch, I can tell you that I've done that, and I had to throw things against the wall to see what would stick, and it can take time to be able to work those things out. You have limited financial options because all that new, cutting edge, never been done, no competition, that does not sell to banks. Banks don't like that. Banks want things that are proven, have a track record, solid, and anything new, just, banks don't lend to those types of things. So you have very limited options in that area. Again, a slower ramp-up time because you just need to figure things out, and it has the highest failure rate. In fact, those statistics that you hear about, most small businesses fail within the first year, that's a startup business. That's a startup, and that's the category right there. So let's talk about what it's like to buy an existing business. And I want to talk a little bit about this because existing businesses occur in both the startup world as well as the franchise world. When people are ready to sell their business, no matter what kind of business it is, it's considered a resale. That's when people are saying, okay, I'm ready to sell this thing. So there's definite advantages to buying somebody's business that's already operational. Hopefully you've got cash flow. That's what you have to do the research, but what you're looking for when you're buying somebody else's business typically is it cash flowing? Does it have goodwill in the community already? Are there actual financial results that we can look at? It's more attractive to lenders because it's already operational. The market's been established. There should be a customer base. There should be employees in place. There should be systems in place. And this is really interesting to know. In many cases, there's an opportunity for some creative financing by having the seller actually carry part of the loan for the buyer. So there's opportunities to negotiate that. Now, the disadvantages of buying somebody else's business are cash flow or lack thereof. You want to make sure if you're going to buy a business, if you're looking for cash flow, you have to do your research to make sure it's there. A lot of people choose to buy somebody else's business, and maybe it's not cash flowing. Maybe they need to turn it around, put some elbow grease into it, and put some cash in it, and that's perfectly fine. You can actually negotiate, a nice resale when you are looking at it that way. But for a lot of people who want to buy a business, they're looking for cash flow. It might be overpriced because, again, if it is cash flowing, the seller can sell it for pretty much any price that they want to ask for it. Now, they're going to be reasonable in their asking, but typically sellers will sell it for anywhere from 2.5 times to 5 times the cash flow. So it can get pricey, and if they're able to get that, that's what they're going to ask. You may get poor training and support by the seller. There may be some hidden seller motivations that you don't know about. For instance, if you have a hardware store that you're looking to buy, but the seller's not going to tell you that Lowe's is going in down the street. Those are the things that you have to uncover in your homework. You may get some employee defection. I bought a resale business, and that happened to me. 2 weeks after I bought a business, I had a couple of key employees leave. But that's typical, and you have to go in knowing that that might happen. And then there's a possibility for a higher debt service, especially if you've done any borrowing. You're going to have to pay the bank in month 1 when they're ready for their first payment. So that debt service is going to take away from any cash flow that you might have. So let's talk about what we focus on here at FriendNet, and that's franchise ownership. And again, there's advantages and disadvantages of a franchise as well, and we want people to know all of those things when they go into this so they're not going in blind. Advantages of buying a franchise are things like name recognition and licensed trademarks. Now that is a definite advantage, but it's not always the case. In fact, we'll talk a little bit about the fact there are franchises out there that you may have never heard of. It doesn't mean that they've been non-existent up until now or that there's anything wrong with them. Sometimes that means that that's a great opportunity for you to start a franchise in a territory that's new. You've got a proven business system. That's what a franchise is. Training and support from the franchisor. It does have a lower failure rate, but I don't want people to think that it has a non-existent failure rate. Just like anything, it's the motivation of the buyer or the investor to make their business work, and they really have to put in the effort just like you would in any other business. This says lower cost. Now, the reality is up front, it's going to be a higher cost in franchising because you have a franchise fee, you're buying somebody else's idea, and you're going to be paying for that. But the idea behind a franchise is that you're going to have the opportunity to see a return sooner than you would if you did a startup on your own. That's the idea behind it, and so you're paying more up front for some advantages in the long term. You get financing options that you don't get in a startup because franchises are based on a proven system. You get full disclosure when you're researching a franchise. It means you get to learn everything top to bottom, and the franchisor walks you through their disclosure document. And franchising feels like a family. This is what I love about franchising. It's probably my favorite thing. You're not in it by yourself. You may be working out of Colorado, but then you can call your associate in Los Angeles or in San Antonio and see what they're doing as well. And you can get together at conferences and learn from each other. So it does have that sense of family. The disadvantages with franchising is there's fewer industry options. There's about 4,000 different franchises out there and about 80 different industries. So there is a lot to choose from, but franchising doesn't go into the never-been-done-before sector. They are going to be going into areas where there is competition because that's where they can make a difference. That's where they can actually consolidate business and actually create something from something that has market share already. It has structured operating systems. While some people might view this as a disadvantage, it's also an advantage. They've got a structured operating system. In some franchises, in all franchises, there is some sort of structured operating system. There's territory restrictions, which again can be viewed as a disadvantage, especially if there's a franchise that you really, really want in your area and it's already sold out. By the time a franchise is a household name, it's probably already sold out in your territory. So that can be disappointing for people who have their heart set on something. You can only sell the product that you've agreed to sell, the products and services. Again, advantage, disadvantage, it's hard to know. I mean, you're selling something that you know is proven, and yeah, you may have some restrictions on what you can sell, but when you're getting into a franchise, you know what you're getting into. And then probably one of the biggest things with franchising, and we'll talk a little bit about this, are the ongoing royalty payments. In franchising, you are paying a percentage back to the franchisor for their franchise support. We'll talk about that here in a moment. So what a franchise is a license to use names, trademarks, products, business systems, all the back-end stuff that make it really cool, like their point-of-sale systems, the way that they get clients, the way they do their advertising, the way they service their clients, all of those things are part of a franchise. So in exchange for all of these things, when you're buying this lovely business in a box, that we like to call it, you're exchanging it for an initial franchise license fee, typically ranging from about $25,000 on the low end to maybe $60,000 on the high end. That's about what a franchise license fee costs for a single unit. It might be more, it might be less. You might buy multiples up front, but it's going to be in that range somewhere. And then ongoing royalties that you're going to be paying to the franchisor moving forward. So franchise is the creation of a distribution channel to build brand identity and attain market dominance quickly. That is the official definition. So you've got the franchise headquarters. This is called the franchisor, the people at the top who have created this system for the franchise operators, also known as franchisees, who then service the customers. And the franchisees are people who want to be part of the franchise system. And what's really unique and interesting about a franchise that you don't get in any other type of business ownership scenario is the all-important government disclosure, the franchise disclosure document, also known as the FDD. Every franchise candidate gets a chance to review the franchise disclosure document, and in that document, it's a big, thick legal document, and it contains information specific to that franchisor. It includes things like how long they've been in business, what their backstory is, the business experience of the founders, any bankruptcies, any anything legal that's going on with the franchisor, any litigation. Total costs are going to be included in there, including the franchise fee and other fees, advertising, equipment, supplies, insurance, your total investment up front, any working capital that you might need, and, of course, the royalties. Also included in that is the franchise contract. So you get a chance to review all of this before you sign the agreement and pay any money. Also included in the FDD are things like obligations that the franchisor and the franchisees have. So it's the agreement between the franchisor and the franchisees, what the territory is, any listing and contact information for current franchisees and past franchisees. And as a franchise candidate, you get the opportunity to talk to these people, to really understand why they themselves invested in the franchise and what it's like, where the rubber meets the road, the day-to-day activities of a franchisee, all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we want you to uncover that so that you know what you're getting into and what it's going to be like as an owner. Any earnings claim that the franchisors might make or is going to be included in there, all of their financial statements, their management policies, their renewal, termination, and transfer policies. It's all in there. Franchises are highly regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, so they're required to have this franchise disclosure document, and it has to be updated, current information, every year. So you get to do your due diligence as you do your research into franchise ownership. And again, you get to talk with current and past franchisees. They're going to let you know the success and failure rate and what it takes to really be successful in this system. And this is not true with independent business owners. You don't get the opportunity to talk with your competitors to find out what's going on with them before you decide to start a business. So you really do get to talk with people who are actually doing it. Only franchising allows such extensive research utilizing past performance results. I want to talk about something here that people ask me about frequently. So people are thinking, okay, well, franchise ownership, that's pretty cool, business ownership, but what if I'm not ready to go into this thing full time? What if I want to keep my job? Or what if a family member wants to keep their job and somebody else wants to start it? A lot of people will ask us about something called semi-absentee ownership. And semi-absentee has actually become very popular of late because right now the economy is really good, but people are thinking about what it's going to look like down the road. So they might want to keep their job for as long as they can right now with the intention of moving into a business full-time later on. So semi-absentee gives them a way to actually start their business, get it up and running so it's ready for them when they might lose their job or choose to leave. It's a popular method of franchise ownership with for people who have steady and sometimes high-paying day jobs. So the goal of this is to become a franchise owner, work with a manager who runs the day-to-day operations with the owner overseeing business. I personally have a semi-absentee business with my hair care franchise. I don't cut hair. I'm not a stylist. I have managers who actually manage my salon and then stylists who cut hair. And then I do the things on the back end like make payroll, do marketing, come in and manage it. I take a look at growth. I set goals. We set challenges. I talk with my managers and find out how things are going. Sometimes that's by phone, and sometimes that's face-to-face. But it gives me the freedom and flexibility to do that when I have the time. People who invest in semi-absentee opportunities really are looking, in some respects, for supplemental income or income security over time. So sometimes they're wanting to start a business because they just want to have something on the side, and they'd never plan to leave their job until they're ready to fully retire. For other people, again, it's about income security. They know their job may not last forever, so they're going to get something going now because they can secure that. For many people, it's multi-generational. That means they're going to look at not only starting this for themselves, but maybe bring in their children to run the business as well and pass it on down the road. Or in some cases, a parent may have the funds or the money to do it, but they have a job and they want their child to actually be the one to run the business. When I say child, I mean adult child, of course. So they're looking at a way for an adult child in their family to be able to run the business for them. Again, it's for full-time employed. They want to diversify their portfolio or create some sort of safety net. I see some questions coming in here, so know that I'm going to answer those as they come in the chat box. But feel free to type them in, and we'll answer those at the end. I do want to talk a little bit about semi-absentee model, just to kind of outline it here. It does cost a little bit more to be a semi-absentee owner for a couple of different reasons. First of all, you need a location for the business to run. So that might mean a retail location, which is going to cost you more. And you need a manager to run it. If you're not there running it, you need to have employees. And that's going to include a manager and, of course, employees to service the clients And it's going to take advertising dollars as well, because now you have to tell the clients where you are, what your business is, and that they need to come in and actually do business there. So it's going to cost more, generally speaking, for a semi-absentee business. Here's some examples of semi-absentee businesses. I've already talked about this. Hair care. Hair care is a classic semi-absentee franchise model. Most of the owners are not stylists. They're not cutting hair. They hire people to do that. And in fact, anything in the beauty area is that way. So right now, some of the really popular beauty concepts include eyelash extensions, eyebrow waxing, anything in the waxing field right now. I mean body waxing of any type, fingernails, nails, manis and pedis, massage, day spas, facials, anything like that. Fitness concepts are also set up to be classic semi-absentee ownership models. You've got trainers actually doing the training of your clients. You're not going to be there doing it. Wellness, very similar. Building and construction. You may do some sales, or you may be the one talking with clients or going into the homes at a time that's convenient for you, but you're not actually doing the work. You have actually somebody else doing that. So again, with semi-absentee, you get to keep your day job. Owner's work is after hours, typically. You can monitor remotely. I can monitor my salon remotely from my computer anytime that I want. I can see what's going on. I have cameras to monitor what's going on in the salon, and periodically I have to consult with the cameras to see if there's any issues. Growth and investment, it's a growth and investment strategy to hedge against economic changes. That's really why a lot of people do that. So let's talk quickly about franchising myths. I do notice somebody here with their hand raised. Do me a favor, if you have your hand raised, put your question in the chat box, and we're going to address it here at the end. I'm not able to take the questions, or we're not able to unmute you to be able to answer any questions, so be sure to put that in the chat box, okay? Franchising myths. Franchising myth number one, franchising is only fast food and retail. And I really mentioned this at the beginning. That's a total myth. Really, that's what people think of because it's what we see. It's what we see on the street every day. We're driving down the street, we see McDonald's, we see Chick-fil-A, so we assume it's only fast food and retail. But the fact is there's over 3,600 different franchise companies in more than 90 different industries with nearly 1 million operating units. So you can see here there's a lot of different categories. Business services, automotive, commercial, residential services, personal services, other. There's a lot of things that fall in the other category. Retail products and services. Pardon me. I had to take a drink of water there. Franchise myth number two. Franchises succeed because of the quality of the product. This is always a fun one to answer because I want to default to McDonald's here. We go to McDonald's, but the reality is, can you make a better hamburger than McDonald's? Most people would say yes. If it's not the hamburger, if it's not because the food is better than McDonald's, it's not the product, then what is it that makes it unique and different? It's all about the business system. Why would somebody want to own a McDonald's when people can make hamburgers at home? It's the system behind it that make it really cool. It's the way they do their marketing. It's the way they do their sales, their operations, their accounting. And it's the all-important consistency that the clients get, all right? If you go into McDonald's, you know you're going to go in and you're going to get a decent hamburger. It's not going to taste bad. In fact, it might taste pretty good. You just may not have the time to make it, or you're in a hurry, or you're on the go, or you just really kind of like the old-fashioned McDonald's hamburger and french fries. And McDonald's has some fabulous french fries, as we all know. So it's about the consistency. If you are franchising, especially in the food industry, we just want to make sure that the food that you get in your Denver location is going to taste just like the food that you get in your Dallas location. It's really about the consistency and the expectations. People aren't expecting a gourmet burger from McDonald's, but they know what they're getting. And that's what franchising brings to the table. And the same holds true even for hair care. So you're going into a Great Clips, or let's say Supercuts, for instance. Supercuts generally appeals to men. They are a national advertising sponsor for Major League Baseball. So you're going to see Supercuts commercials all over a broadcast baseball game. So for a lot of men, it's not so much about getting this really great, super fantastic fade that they might get at a traditional barbershop, but going into Supercuts and getting a pretty darn good haircut in about 20 minutes. That's for a lot of people, that's all they want, and it's perfectly fine. So it's about expectations, but for the franchise owner, it's all this fun stuff in the background that make it very appealing about why you would want to own a business. So I always ask my clients to keep an open mind when they're looking at something. If I show them hair care because it fits their personality, I don't want them to turn their nose up at it until they've really had a chance to go in and take a look at the back end of the system to see how it really works. That's where the exciting part is. Franchise myth number 3, successful franchises emerge in new industries with no new competitors. And I actually sort of mentioned this up front. The reality is successful franchises emerge from well-established industries by creating consolidation. Remember that franchises don't do never been done before. They want to go in to industries that already have a market presence. That way they know that people are going to buy. Franchises are the salt of the earth, the mundane. They run the world. Franchises run the world. They're not the moonshot. They're not the one and done. If this doesn't work, then it's never going to work. It's not the moonshot that a Microsoft or an Amazon is. That's not what they do. They do the everyday, mundane. They fill a need, and they service a lot of different people with those needs. So competition is a good thing. I tell my clients this. I just had a client meeting yesterday, and the first thing out of my client's mouth when she saw one of the franchises I presented to her was, well, there's already competitors. Well, of course there is, and that's a good thing. That's how you know that there's a market share. Again, franchises do not enter segments where there is no competition. The fact is, it's a system. Again, McDonald's started when there was a burger joint on every corner. Keep that in mind. They started when there was a burger joint at every corner. People loved hamburgers. So if people love hamburgers, why not create a franchise that sells hamburgers? That's what McDonald's did. Some more recent examples are things in the consumer business services, so things in hair care. At one time, there were no franchise hair care concepts. It was the mom and pop on the corner. That's where people went to get their hair done. And franchising came in, and they consolidated a lot of that. The stylists didn't go away. They just moved from a mom and pop shop. Now there's a lot of them that work for a lot of different franchises. Franchise myth number 4, franchises are expensive. Pardon me while I take a drink here. So the myth is that franchises are expensive. I mentioned at the beginning, franchises generally cost more up front because they have a franchise license fee, but it's not always the $1 million investment that people think it is. Yes, there are some franchises out there that are the $1 million investment. It truly is. But I like to show this slide because it really demonstrates that there's a range of franchises out there, some that range from under $50,000 all the way up to those that are in the $500,000 to $1 million range. And if you're buying an entire state with multiple units, it can go even higher than that. So there's definitely a range there, but you can see that there are some that fall in categories that may seem more affordable. Now, I will say for a lot of people, when they first learn about it, when they first hear about it, and they hear $50,000, they still think that's expensive. But if you start adding up all of the costs that it takes to buy a business, or to even start a business, what a franchise does is they lay all of that out line item by line item so that you can really see what it truly costs from the very beginning. So you're not guessing at this when you're trying to start your own business. You actually know what each of these things are going to cost because the franchise has done the research. And this is really important for people to understand. There is no automatic correlation between the cost of a franchise and the potential return. So for those people who might be thinking, well, in order to make money, you have to spend a lot of money, that's not necessarily true in franchising. If you buy a lower cost franchise, it just means that you have lower overhead in some cases, so you might be able to see a return on investment sooner than you would if you bought a really expensive franchise. So how much money do you really need when you're looking at a franchise? I had this question come up today when I was teaching at the Air Force Base. Everybody has to come to the table with money. It's just like if you buy a house or you buy a car, you don't get to finance the entire thing. The same is true with a business. You have to come to the table with something. So in the case of a franchise, you need to come to the table with the amount of the franchise license fee, and that's going to be about 25 to 30% of the investment. The remaining amount can be financed, especially if you have a franchise that has collateral in there, so something that has some equipment that you can use for collateral. Banks like collateral, so they can definitely collateralize those types of things and offer you financing up to 70 to 75%. This next slide is going to talk about where people find financing resources. Yes, people many times do have personal savings accounts where they've been saving money to look at a business. So some people find it from personal savings. Some people find it from friends, relatives, or partners. Home equity lines of credit are another resource for business investing. Seller financing, such as a resale where the seller might carry part of the loan. What's not listed on here is traditional banks who do SBA lending and banks that do non-traditional lending as well. I will say that anytime you're looking at doing a small business loan, you need to plan on probably 45 to 60 days to complete that. Now, the very last one here at the bottom is the 401k IRA. I get a lot of questions about this. I get people who say, I would never invest my retirement in something like this. I wouldn't risk that. Other people are like, I want to diversify my retirement portfolio, and buying a business is a really great way to do that. So we tell people to keep an open mind because there are ways that you can use your 401k rollover or your IRA to fund a business without taxes or penalties. And you need to be open to that. Entrepreneurs who want to finance a business are looking at a variety of different ways to do that. So part of your funding may come from an IRA, a 401k. At FriendNet, we don't do that, but we do refer you to people who can help set that up for you. There's ways to do it. We don't do it, but again, we refer you out to partners, to our vendor partners who can do that for you. And then we'll also refer you to lenders, maybe local lenders or national lenders who can help you finance your business as well. So I'll tell people who are in the military kind of appreciate this when I say it. When you're looking at a funding package, very rarely does all of your funding come from one source. You're going to MacGyver it together. So it's going to come from a variety of different sources. You're going to put together a funding package from a variety of different sources, such as maybe home equity, loans, 401k, maybe some savings. That's really how people are buying businesses. Franchising myth number 5, higher return requires a higher investment. I mentioned this on one of the previous slides. There is no automatic correlation between the cost of a franchise and the potential return. Service businesses are a classic example of this because they require far less capital investment, and they many times can give a higher yield because, again, they don't have the overhead that something like in the high-end retail business would have. Myth number 6, industry experience is required. So many people think about this when they're looking at buying a business. Keep in mind, I run a hair care franchise. I don't know how to cut hair. I don't want to know how to cut hair. I didn't go to cosmetology school. And what franchisors want are not people who know how to do. They want people who know how to manage those who do. So they want somebody who's going to know how to use their system, but they're going to focus on being the owner, not being the one doing it. So they're going to work on the business, not in the business. They're looking for people who have solid business skills. They come to the table with business and management and communication skills that they've learned through their corporate careers. It's a proven process. The franchisor is going to train you. The franchisor is going to train you on how to use their system and how to hire employees to be able to run that. So why own a franchise? A franchise is a great fit for you when you consider it as a vehicle that's going to get you to your destination while meeting your lifestyle and financial goals. Okay, so for a lot of people that means getting from the end of a corporate career to maybe true retirement down the road. A franchise can bridge that gap. So franchise license typically, the term on a license is 10 years on average. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. At the end of that 10 years, you may choose to renew that license or you may sell it, whatever, but you have a solid business that's up and running, and a lot of people are using it to bridge the retirement gap. It's a way to reduce risk, and it's a way to give you that, again, that income security versus the job security. So start thinking that way when you're looking at anything, even if you're looking at your corporate career, what's going to give you income security, not just job security. So why pay royalties? This is pretty important because a lot of people, we do have a question in our chat box about royalties. Royalties, again, are percentage. Typically, it's a percentage of gross revenue. It goes back to the franchisor. But here's the reasons why royalties are important. Now, if you're looking at it from the franchisor's point of view, this is what it means. Good franchisors really do lose money in the short term. So if you're paying your franchise license fee, that franchise license fee only goes so far, and it goes back out to cover expenses to bring on a new franchisee. So in the early stages, they're training you on how to get up and running, which also means that you're going to have smaller royalty payments since it's based on a percentage of gross revenue. And that's going to happen when the support costs for the franchisor are higher because you're learning. So they're going to be supporting you more. So franchisors make money over time through royalties. That's how they make their money. So when you make money, the franchisor makes money. That's really how it works. So you get bigger royalty payments as your business grows as a franchisee, and their support costs are lower. One of the things that I want people to think about when they're looking at royalties are a trade-off. So you're exchanging some of your profits in the long term for risk reduction in the short term. So they're supporting you in a variety of different ways. And some of the ways that a franchisor should be supporting you through royalties includes things like experience. They're offering you their experience, their knowledge, training. They're simplifying the process for you. They've already streamlined it and simplified it. They're offering you initial training and ongoing training and support. That could be when you run into trouble or if there's something that's happening in your market that you need special assistance with. The franchisor is there to help through that. You're also paying for some name recognition, names and trademark recognition that you wouldn't normally have on your own. Sales and marketing and operational systems you're paying for as well. You're also paying for things like maybe some marketing support is a really good example. In my franchise, my royalties actually help to support my social media efforts. They actually do a lot of my social media marketing for me, which is really nice. It takes a huge burden off of me. They help me with sales, the point of sales or the POS system that I use. If I have any problems with it, if the system is down, if there's a problem, there's somebody that I can call, and I'm not paying for that because it's coming out of my royalties. And there's that all-important culture of teamwork. You have a back office that might be there to support you in a lot of different ways. At FriendNet, pardon me, FriendNet is also a franchise. So if I need some marketing materials created, I can just call up my marketing consultant or my marketing person at FriendNet and have them support me and help me to create some marketing collateral. In addition to that, I love having my other franchisee partners that I can call and talk to and have conversations with and meet them at the conferences that we have where we meet up and we discuss and we do training. So royalties go to cover a lot of that. So if you're thinking about royalties being this money that's going into a black hole, the franchises are obligated to support you because of the royalties that you pay. The franchises are not all the same. There's a variety of different franchises out there. We show this slide to help people understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all type of scenario. So just because your neighbor owns a Subway and they do very well and they enjoy it doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for you. You may want to have a franchise that maybe there's only one location versus many locations. You may want something that's more established or something newer. It's going to give you an opportunity to get a foothold in a certain market. There's structured systems versus flexible systems. So if you think about McDonald's, McDonald's is very structured. You don't get to play with the menu. You don't get to play with the recipes. Everything has to be the same. Versus a franchise like FriendNet. where I get flexibility in the franchise model. I get flexibility in how I acquire clients, how I work with them. You have expensive versus inexpensive, so it can fit a budget. So again, remember, there's no automatic correlation between the cost of a franchise and the potential return. So I do want people to be aware of statistics. Big franchisors skew percentages, maybe because they've had a few failures. So keep those things in mind as you're doing your research. And this holds true for a franchise versus buying another business versus doing a startup. You need to really study the statistics and look at them with an open mind. Not all units in a franchise are necessarily run by the original founder. So if something is listed in the franchise disclosure document as a failure, it may not necessarily be a failure, or the franchisor may take it back over so it doesn't count as a failure. There's no average franchises. I get this question a lot, like on average, how much does a franchise cost? It's really hard to give an average because you've got a wide range and in a lot of different industries. You're more likely to find more details if you're looking at a specific industry when you can start getting some averages. But if you're looking at franchising overall and looking for averages, it's really hard to define. So you have to really dig in and do some homework. But you should really only care about your success because, again, you may not thrive in something like a Subway, whereas somebody else will. But it's really about the motivation of the owner and what they're going to do to make that franchise successful. In fact, any business. Make sure that a franchise that you're looking at, that you're interested in, is a great fit for you. And that's really what we do at FriendNet. So we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. We like to tell people that when you're doing franchising, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. That's kind of a mantra in franchising. We really want you, as this is where we start getting into what FriendNet does for you. Part of our role as a franchise consultant is to help find a perfect fit for you. And what we're going to do is help you understand and separate the function of the business from the function of the business owner. So again, if you decide to buy, or if we decide to show you a hair care franchise, or maybe a better example is a handyman franchise, we don't want you to think that you're going to be the one repairing toilets. We're going to help you separate out what you're actually going to be doing versus what you're going to hire people to do, and why it might be a good fit for you because you can do that separation. Part of finding your perfect fit is really asking yourself some questions. Am I willing to follow the franchisor's system? That's really important. If you're not willing to follow a system, franchising may not be a good alternative for you. You have to be willing to follow that, but part of the process is learning to understand it and really understand what the system brings to the table and why you should follow it. Is it affordable for you? Is it a good fit for you financially? Is the level of risk acceptable for you? Do you have the stomach for a newer concept? Maybe you're going to want a more mature concept. And will you enjoy it? I will say this. I absolutely love going into my business every day. Now, for a lot of people, the idea of working with stylists maybe doesn't appeal to them. There's a lot of drama in hair care. But I really, truly love my stylist. I love going into my salon. I love talking with my clients. I really, really love it. And that's what a lot of people feel. It becomes part of the family. I kind of share with people that we like people to understand that a franchise becomes, or a business in general, becomes a member of your family. So in the early stages, your new business may feel like a new puppy. And we all know what new puppies are like, that they need constant supervision to make sure that they're not making a mess on your carpet or chewing up your shoes. Or you can't just go out of town and go on vacation and leave them. You have to have somebody there to watch it. So it's sort of like that, but you love it. You love it anyway. It becomes a member of the family. That's how we want you to think about owning a business, not just a franchise, but any business. It's a member of the family, and it needs to be treated with that respect as well. So we want people to know, to understand what's important to them. So we're going to ask you the tough questions, like what is it about business ownership that's important to you? Is it challenge, recognition, prestige? Do you want to build equity for retirement, or do you want to build an income for today? Are you looking for more time with your family and your interests, or are you looking to really dive in and have this business be part of you? Are you looking for independence and control or financial security? These are some of the things that you want to ask yourself. Now, in FranNet, what we do is we have our clients complete a personal franchise assessment that asks a lot of the questions, that helps us build what we call a business model. Now, this is FranNet's proprietary profiling tool, and it's based on science. And it helps to establish for us as consultants what your individual values, motives, and core competencies are. So it helps us to really match you with a franchise that's going to fit you. When you complete our personal franchise assessment, you're going to receive back like a 12-page document that's really going to outline your personality based on what you shared with us. And it's going to help you understand how we use that to find a business for you. Now, just because you fill this out doesn't mean that you're obligated to take a look at franchises. I've had clients that will fill out the profile just because they're interested, and maybe now is not the time to look for a franchise, but they like understanding what I do and how I use that information and how I might share that with them to help them find a franchise. We build a business model for you. When you work with us, we help you understand based on your profile what types of things are going to be a good fit for you in a business, and that's what we look for. We use that criteria to find your business. We take a look at your skills too. Are you really good at sales? Maybe we can find you something that's going to require you to focus on sales, where you're going to go out and you're going to meet with clients every single day. If you're not so good at sales, maybe you want a retail business. We'll find it for you. We want to help you determine what your business goals are in the future, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. What do you picture your lifestyle looking like? Then we build this really nice profile for you on this that's going to list all of the things that you told us in our meeting, what your personality is like, and what type of business is going to be a good fit for you, how that process is going to work. Put it all on one sheet of paper so it's going to look like this for you. I want to mention a couple of things here as we wind down. There's some really good books that we like to recommend to our clients. First of all, we do want you to be aware that during this process, you're going to consult with professional advisors, including a franchise attorney, not your brother's divorce attorney. Mind you, this needs to be a franchise attorney, somebody who's familiar with franchising, maybe an accountant, a financial planner. There's a banker, a regular business attorney. There's a lot of people that you might consult with in this process. And generally speaking, we have some referrals for you in those areas. Here's some books that we like to recommend people read. More Than Just French Fries is FranNet's book that we wrote a couple of years ago. I actually have a chapter in there. There's different people who have contributed to the book. Some of them are with FranNet. Some of them are vendor partners that have also contributed as well. The E-Myth Revisited is an excellent book by Michael Gerber, as well as Street Smart Franchising by Joe Matthews. And one that I want to add to this list, actually two that I want to add to this list, The Millionaire Next Door, excellent book, and another book called Profit First. Read that book. That's a fabulous book that really can help my clients or any people who are starting a business get off on the right foot. So we're getting close to the end here. Next steps, if you're interested in talking with a FranNet consultant, if you haven't already, you can go to our website at frannet.com and locate your FranNet consultant by typing in your zip code in that area up there in the upper right-hand corner. Now, at this time, I'm going to take some questions. We've got people who have put some questions in the box here. We're going to start with the first one. What is the typical royalty fee, and is it consistent year on year? That's a very good question, and it's going to vary depending on the franchise. Some franchises have a percentage. Now, we tell people, a range to think of in terms of royalties is 5 to 12%. But the reality is it can be less than that. It can be more than that. Some franchises actually offer flat fee royalties. We have a few of those as well. Some franchisors offer lower franchise royalties in the early stages, building up over time. Some franchises offer higher royalties in the beginning, and as your base grows, they might lower the royalties. So it can change year over year depending on the model. So that's why you have to do your research when you start down this process and really understand what the royalty structure is, because it's going to be different for everybody. Here's another question. Who pays FranNet's commission? Very good question, and I thought I addressed it at the beginning, but I may not have been really clear. It is no cost for you to use our services at FriendNet. The reason for that is because we operate like a recruiter, the franchisors pay us a referral fee only when our clients invest in a business. So we get paid at the end. So as I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of times I'm working with people who never end up buying a business. So our role really becomes educational because not everybody buys a business. But for those who do, then the franchisor pays us a referral fee. That's how we get paid. It's the same across the board. Everybody who looks at that franchise is paying the same fee whether they use a broker or not. It's just that in our case, the franchisors are glad to pay us a fee because we actually do some of the work for them up front. We vet the clients for them. We know that they're a good fit. We've done some of the legwork that they don't have to do in the early stages. They pay us a fee for that. Here's another question. Would you please touch on the options for an exit strategy? What are the options, restrictions for selling your franchise after you have run it successfully for some time? That's an excellent question too, and it's something that we want people to consider at the very beginning stages. So if you're looking at buying a franchise or buying any business, think about what your end game is going to be. Are you looking at something short-term that's maybe that you can actually, again, bridge the gap, that 10-year gap between leaving a corporate job and true retirement? And think about what that strategy is at 10 years. Think about what you need to build the sales to be at the end. And yes, you can sell a franchise business. I've had many clients who've actually bought a franchise resale business that is up and running, that's cash flowing, that's operational with clients. I did that, in fact. The franchise that I bought was a resale. So a lot of people will use that as an exit strategy. That could be a retirement strategy. Keep in mind that if you're investing in an IRA or a 401k, something like that, you're putting money in for an interest rate typically, and you may do very well in that. But when you're investing in a business, you should be thinking about investing to create an income for yourself, but also grow equity in the business. So that's why a lot of people will diversify their retirement and invest in a business because it's really the only way that you can truly grow equity and have an income over time. This is why a lot of people do it. So think about what your exit strategy is going to be. If you're doing it to sell the business, I have known people who buy a franchise, get it up and running, get it running very well, and then choose to sell it a few years down the road, kind of like people who flip. Not everybody does that, but there are people that do that. But they've got that specific goal in mind. So I hope that answered your question. And I don't see any other questions on here. Now keep in mind that this is recorded, so you can get a copy of this. In fact, for those of you who are on this call, you'll actually get, you'll have somebody reach out to you from FriendNet, your local FriendNet rep, who will be able to send this link to you later on. We'll probably have it tomorrow. So I want to thank you all for participating in this seminar today or this webinar, and I hope you found it useful, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.